our hearts be always acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Have you ever been called by the land like the cookies in the cookie jar? The cookies say, eat me, eat me. But the land, it says, come to me, come to me. I have, and it was by land out in Arizona. My aunt first planted the seed, pun intended, about us doing a through hike of the Arizona Trail in maybe about 2018 when I was visiting her. And it sounded great, but kind of just a pipe dream. But in 2022, I was there for a tough day hike, and she had obviously taken to heart what her husband had told us, that an idea without a timeline is just a dream, but once there's a timeline, now it's a plan. She gave our dream a timeline, and in February 2023, we started off on our journey. I remember so clearly our first day out, cold but sunny, with our packs overstuffed, and I felt so blissful. I knew it didn't matter how far we got on our hike, as I was doing what I'd been called to do, be out in the land and walk. And it felt like the land was happy also, like it was saying, oh, you came, how wonderful. You definitely get a different sense of the land when you're backpacking through it, and at times being in places you can't get to by any other way than a whole lot of walking. So I think it's only right that we are discussing land pretty early in our creation season, as it is truly the ground for our being. The land forms us, literally. In the second chapter of Genesis, God formed a man, Adam, from the dust of the ground, Adamah. So the land is really important to our very being, and it makes sense that we feel such a connection to it. But I don't think we always take the time to notice this. One of the first times I thought about land was in elementary school, when a classmate's dad, who played the banjo, would bring it to school and demonstrate it for us. Of course he played "This Land Is Your Land" by Woody Guthrie. And I didn't think much of it at the time. It was just a feel-good song. But like many songs of that era, there was more to it. It was actually written as a protest song, protesting Irving Berlin's "God Bless America," as Guthrie felt Berlin's song did not address the vast inequalities present in American society in the distribution of wealth and land. Guthrie did, however, tame down some of his verses to make them more appropriate for children, and so it would play on the radio. But his concerns are still relevant today. Interestingly, in the vein of no matter what you do, some folks just aren't happy, some people felt that Guthrie glossed over the unfair taking of the land from the Native Americans in the first place. That is a very bad spot on our history as a country. Unfortunately, probably most countries have a similar history. And there's not much we can do as individuals to right that wrong and actively redistribute the land. But we can learn more about that history and about how the Native Americans saw the land in the first place and honor their sacrifice by using the land well. First, I want to direct your attention to page 16 of your bulletin. There's a red box on it. That is our land acknowledgement. It's a statement to acknowledge and thank the people who were the inhabitants of this land prior to us. It's in our bulletin every week, but often the things that are always there get easily looked over. This week, it seems like the right time to draw your attention to it. So what do the Native Americans believe about the land? They believe that land is sentient, that it holds great energy. Thus, the idea of owning land is not part of their belief system. They live and work with the land and care for it as they would a member of their family. It makes me wonder about the question asked of Jesus before he told the parable of the Good Samaritan. Who is my neighbor? What if the neighbor is not just the people that you don't think worship correctly, but also the very earth itself? How would that change how we are encouraged to behave? Out in Arizona, the native culture is much more prevalent, and thus I find it easier to feel kinship with the land there. But Native American history is everywhere. And so this week, I encourage you to spend some time just being with the land, hearing what it has to say to you. Ask what you can do to support it and how it can support you. So what do our readings tell us? They were all chosen for how they speak about the land. Our Gospels tell several parables about seeds and how they grow. And there's a lot to ponder and lessons to be gleaned from seeds. But today, it's about the land. For the seed by itself can't do anything. A seed can be stored for years and it'll stay just like it is, a seed. But when it is placed into the land, then it can germinate and grow into a full grain, or the greatest of all shrubs. The text says the earth produces of itself. Now granted, the land by itself does not produce anything. It needs the seed as well. That could probably be our lesson almost any Sunday. We need each other. All of us, animal, vegetable, mineral, we all have our own unique gifts and talents. Those gifts can get us only so far by themselves, however. But when we work together and share our gifts with each other, then we can truly thrive. So back to the idea of land ownership. The reading from Acts is a classic on how to build a more perfect Christian community, sharing everything, not having private ownership of any possessions, including the land. But it is still slightly different from the native perspective, as the early Christians either held ownership in common or sold it to someone else. But selling the land, even when you use the proceeds for good works, still has the idea of ownership of the land. Now, this idea is biblical. Way back in Genesis 12, God told Abram that he would give that land to his offspring, and people have been warring about land ever since. We've had some hopefully really great news this past week with the peace deal between Israel and Hamas. But what was a big part of what they were fighting over? Land and the power that goes with it. Russia and Ukraine are still at war over land. And lest you think it's only nations that squabble over the land, my friend recently told me that her great-grandmother had a large piece of land and 13 children. When the great-grandmother died, the lands did not get distributed equally among the children, and they got angry with each other, and various branches of the family still don't speak to each other. How very sad. Yes, land is super important, and we should treat it with great reverence. But to fight over it, either with anger in our hearts or with weapons that kill and maim, seems like we've got it wrong somehow. Yet if we look back to our Bible and it says God gave us this land, did the Bible get it wrong? Did God set us up to fight with each other? I can't believe that's what God intended. I don't believe that the Bible is a word-for-word dictation from God, but rather the story of our ancestors' walk with God from their perspective, as that's all they can really know. And sometimes I do think they got it wrong, didn't quite understand what God was trying to tell them. Perhaps when there was famine in the land, it was the land's way of crying out, saying that what the people were thinking and doing was just a bit off, but the people didn't know how to interpret the land's message. So my prayer is that we can learn to better interpret what the land is telling us, respond to it when it calls out to us, not think we have to beat it into submission, but rather work with it so it is healthy and can be the ground of our support that I believe it was intended to be. Amen.